John Sandquist, and I'm the Marketing Content Coordinator for Orion Advisor Services. Just want to start things out with a quick hello and introduction of who we have on the call today. We are very excited to welcome AdvisoryWorld to show you guys everything that they have to offer in their Orion integration. We have Michael Wilson and Ed Falstrom from the AdvisoryWorld side to present our offering. And we've also got Bill Winterberg returning again from fppad.com to moderate today's session. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bill. And again, thank you everybody for joining us today.
Wonderful, John. Thank you so much for the introduction. As John said, I'm Bill Winterberg. I'm the founder of fppad.com. That's a technology news and publication resource for you, the independent financial advisor. I also do a weekly broadcast called FPPad Bits and Bytes. It's about a 5-minute video that helps keep you up to date on the top technology stories that matter to your business. You can subscribe to that for free. There's no obligation, no anything. It's at fppad.com/subscribe. And the reason why I mentioned that broadcast is if you were watching the September 19th episode, it's still online, go back and search for that for September 19th, you would have seen a recap of the Fuse event, Fuse 2014. And that was an event out in Park City, Utah that Orion hosted and invited a number of integration partners to show off their integrations with the Orion Client Portal and Orion API and demonstrate how they could use technology and use the integration to move an advisor's business forward. And one of those award winners and award recipients from Fuse 2014 was AdvisoryWorld. They actually won 2 awards at that event. They won, number 1, it was best use of the Orion API, and number 2, it was the best application of research and analytics. So I want to give Mike and Ed the opportunity to talk about the integrations and talk about some of those retail grade presentations that they're able to provide to advisors as well as to end investors, and how they're able to allow advisors to scale their business, grow their business with a application of intelligent technology. So Mike and Ed, without further ado, I'm going to turn over the presentation to you.
Thanks, Bill. That's much appreciated. Thank you for the introduction. Today I'm pleased to introduce the AdvisoryWorld and Orion integration with all the attendees and for any of you that are watching on a later recording. The first thing I'm going to do is take you down the path of how advisors can integrate with AdvisoryWorld through Orion, and then I'm going to showcase the 2-time award-winning integration with Fuse later on in my presentation. You'll see what we've been able to couple with our integration with Orion is a true integration with portfolio accounting and performance reporting married with portfolio analytics, investment planning, and research. Of course, in this pie chart, Orion Advisor sits on the portfolio accounting side, AdvisoryWorld on the analytics side. The integration points that I plan on showcasing with you today and that I would hope all of you start to use in your practices are asset fact sheets, portfolio reports, seamless sign-on between AdvisoryWorld and Orion, and of course, last but definitely not least, the Fuse client dashboard. Core to our advisor offering are several key elements that we would consider to be our core competencies. Things like hypothetical illustrations and backtesting performance, looking at MPT statistics, whether that's standard deviation or downside deviation or Sortino ratio or any of those different MPT statistics that you may be interested in using in your practice today. Those are the type of things that are wheelhouse to us. We have an entire risk profiling, risk scoring, and risk analysis component to our advisor solution that we've also coupled now in our Fuse solution, and I will showcase that again in a bit. We offer portfolio optimization in the efficient frontier. We provide Monte Carlo simulation to analyze forward-looking goals and probabilities associated with those goals. We have an investment screening and investment planning component, and as well at the end of the run provide a series of quantitative proposals. The first place that I'm going to illustrate our integration with Orion is through our asset fact sheet integration. And you'll notice that for any of the assets inside of your advisor dashboard, you're able to click on AdvisoryWorld. And when you click on AdvisoryWorld, you'll get a detailed, comprehensive one-page tear sheet. Now this instance is showing an AdvisoryWorld branded report with AdvisoryWorld colors and logos. However, with a few clicks of the mouse, you can set up your own branding rights. Many of you on the call probably already have those rights and branding elements set up. So for those of you that are new to the AdvisoryWorld and Orion integration, please do note that all of your logos and colors can carry through directly through our synchronous integration for fact sheets or any of the reports that I show you here today. Continuing on, the next report that I'm going to showcase is the portfolio reports. And you'll notice that within the portfolio dashboard, you're able to select custom reports, such as the AdvisoryWorld Holdings Scan report, to be included within your portfolio snapshot report. And when you include that feature and you generate that report, you get our comprehensive quantitative analysis directly within Orion. You notice in this instance, Orion is pulling back all of the features that are core to our holding scan report and presenting them in their native report writer. So all of the design looks consistent across all of the different components of that portfolio snapshot report in this instance. You also have the ability to create custom reports through Orion. And with these custom reports, you'll see that you can actually construct a report that includes whether you want holding scan report elements, or perhaps you would want Monte Carlo simulation, or any of the different sub-reports, if you will, to be included in your overall Orion Advisor report package. You can call all those elements directly to your reports today. And with that, I'm going to next show you the integration with single sign-on directly into AdvisoryWorld through Orion. And you'll notice that under the Resources tab and Market Data, there's an AdvisoryWorld link. When you click on AdvisoryWorld, it will step you right into a page where you set your AdvisoryWorld user ID. You can save that credential, and then when you sign on, it launches our Scanalytics application, at which point you can import and retrieve all of your households, any of their contacts, any of the associated accounts, and all the positions underneath those accounts in a seamless manner. So here you can see I quickly pulled across this client, and I can generate all of my reports real time directly through this app. So we talked about a few key ways that advisors can leverage our capabilities just now. One is through the the asset fact sheet. Secondly is through commingling our reports with core Orion advisor reports, such as the portfolio snapshot, including the AdvisoryWorld holding scan. The third was looking at the ability to build custom reports, including AdvisoryWorld content, such as Monte Carlo simulation. And the last method was integrating with AdvisoryWorld through seamless sign-on, at which point, once the user steps into our application, we can retrieve all the household, contact, account, and positional data. I'm going to go ahead and pause for a few seconds and see if there are any questions.
Yeah, Mike, ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, you can type in questions using the chat window in your GoToWebinar control panel. John and myself are moderating questions coming in, and we'll make sure that we filter those into Mike. So, Mike, let me turn it back over to you.
one additional element that I'm not going to be able to showcase to you during this presentation, but Ed Foster from my team just reminded me that I should point at, is our ability to consume models and model composite data directly from Orion Advisor. That means that we can import all the model holdings and all the historical model performance from Orion, at which point we can calculate derivative statistics and generate model fact sheets carrying across all of your branding for each or any of your models. It's a really nice win for a lot of folks that we work with at Orion Advisor today. And now I'm excited to show you some more of the actual Fuse integration, or how we've integrated with Orion's client dashboard. The main purpose for putting this integration together was to help all of you compete with retail brokerage. And what we've attempted to do is look at some of the best of breed retail sites such as Schwab.com or Scottrade.com, E-Trade, all those different sites, and figure out where AdvisoryWorld could take some of those, some of the best functions from those sites and bring them to Orion Advisor's client dashboard. So we've looked to provide a series of value-added tools that in general will help you improve your transparency and provide your individual investors, your clients, with retail-grade technology. There are 5 key elements with which we've integrated with the client dashboard. And those consist of risk scoring, which I've mentioned to you previously, but I'll show you in a live example. We also provide asset fact sheets in a similar way that we do through the Advisor interface. We provide portfolio analytics, investment screening, and Monte Carlo simulation. Please give me 2 seconds as I move across to show you the live integration with the client dashboard. So what you'll notice here straight off is that we're now inside of the Orion application. However, there are several AdvisoryWorld elements that are displayed. And you will see that first off, we have this AdvisoryWorld risk score associated with this account or any of the accounts that we open up. The risk score is calculated in real time, doesn't require your individual investor clients to do anything besides open up their dashboard, and they'll see their risk score. This score is calculated based on a number of factors, primarily based on a series of MPT statistics, including beta, downside, deviation, minimum rate of return with certain confidence intervals, and the like. Happy to discuss that more at length with any of you offline. The risk score, of course, helps the investor determine how volatile or aggressive their portfolio might be, and of course it's scaled on a scale from 1 to 100. You'll also notice that within the Holdings tab here, all of these different investments have little pieces of paper next to them. If I click on any of these, you'll see real-time an investment fact sheet will be loaded up. Now this is available for any of your investor clients. And I know that a question came up when I demonstrated the fact sheets previously about what differentiates our fact sheets from others. And really the core components of the fact sheets are pretty consistent if you were to look at our fact sheets versus, I don't know, Morningstar or some of the potential other providers out there. One thing we do notice, though, that sets us apart from others is that our fact sheets have a little bit different look and feel. Now, this is an on-screen fact sheet, so it doesn't necessarily look and feel the same way the one I showed you in the PowerPoint deck does. But to that end, the look and feel being a little bit different is nice. We're hearing from more and more folks like yourselves in the audience that when you demonstrate a Morningstar fact sheet to a client or a prospect, many times you're faced with an uncomfortable response, and that is, well, I can get this from any of the sites that I work with. I can get this from my Schwab login or my Scottrade login. What are you doing differently for me? This is a clear, differentiated look and feel compared to what those folks are getting from other sites. So that's a huge difference. As it pertains to retrieving your model composite and your model allocation data, think of how easy we make that for you. Literally within our application with 2 clicks of the mouse, you can import both of those data series and keep them updated on a regular basis, meaning that you can generate fact sheets for your own strategies in an automated fashion on an ongoing basis. But I digress. So at this point, I'd like to come back and talk a little bit more about the integration that we have here with the client portal. Of course, this is the first place looking at a fact sheet for any one of these holdings. And you can see we have risk and return statistics associated with the manager versus its best fit benchmark. We've got different statistics such as max drawdown, up and down market capture, as mentioned. We look at the exposure to the macro allocation, such as equities, cash, other. We have top sectors. You can see you have a pretty good exposure to oil and gas, which is pretty telling. Country exposure. Then we look at equity properties and equity holdings. So you can see, lo and behold, we've got a Chevron position, ConocoPhillips. I'm just iterating these today because all of us know what's been happening to oil as of late. And it's interesting. Within this same analysis, we're able to call up a portfolio report that we call the holding scan, again with a single click. And when I say we, I mean individual investors. So I click here on holding scan, and you'll see in a couple seconds, we'll go ahead and crunch that report and present it in the same native nature that we looked at the fact sheet, or the whole experience is consistent. And you'll notice that we look at the macro allocation, the exposure to equities, fixed income, cash, other, and convertibles. We have the asset class allocation. And I'll take a second to let all of you know who might not already know that this classification table, these schemas, are customizable. So if you have your own preferred way of classifying investments, we can absolutely set that up for you as part of our service here at AdvisoryWorld. We're looking now at the back-tested hypothetical performance of this portfolio versus its best fit benchmark. We also have the risk and return characteristics of those same assets, the account and the benchmark, as well as best and worst case analysis, equity properties, fixed income properties, various metrics. Everything that we looked at before at the individual investment level is now up for analysis at the portfolio level, including the overlap. So you can see not only did you have an Exxon position in that large cap value fund, but it's also in the core equity fund. So this gives you an idea as to where you may have overlap or exposure to various investments. So that covered 3 key elements: the risk score, the investment fact sheet, and the portfolio analytics, or what we call the holding scan. The next thing I'm going to point to is the research component. And I'll start off at the asset screener. One of the ways that we found that many investors, including yours truly, uses the retail brokerage site is to find appropriate investments, to try to find the best ETF in a certain category. And what we've done here is we've opened up that same type of functionality to your individual investor clients through the Orion Advisor dashboard. And so the first thing I'll do is I'll say what type of investment I'm looking for. So maybe I'll go ahead and choose ETFs. The next thing I'm going to do is set up the asset classification. So, I'm not sure what type of investments that you may be looking for, but just for argument's sake, let's say I'm interested in mid-cap value funds and or ETFs rather, and small-cap value ETFs. I've got both of those selected. And then I'm going to go back down and say, okay, I want them to be incepted on or before, let's say 2011. And then I'll add one more criteria. Maybe I'll look at Sharpe ratio. 3-year Sharpe that I want to be greater than or equal to 1. And here you have a series of investments that meet that criteria. So I've got all of these mid-cap and small-cap value funds, their inception dates, and their associated Sharpe ratios. And of course, I can sort these first to worst by any of the categories. I can even go in here and compare many of these side by side. So if I click compare 4 items, this is a really cool feature. As an investor, I'm able to see, all those assets side by side, high and low, 52 weeks, assets under management, expense, which is a great thing to look at. So you can see that index fund is pretty low expense, which makes sense. I can also see the historical performance of all these side by side. Got all of the different statistics that we looked at the fact sheet level here in a comparative manner. I've got the risk versus return characteristics. You can see if there's any outliers. This, of course, on the y-axis is return, on the x-axis is standard deviation. So depending on where you want to fit in there, of course, you would select the appropriate ETF. Now, in this case, it's clear to me that this product has lower return than all the other ETFs in the analysis and a much higher risk number or standard deviation in this instance. So that covers, in a very abbreviated manner, the ability to find investments and meet criteria, compare those investments, and again, this is the type of technology that you would learn to expect in systems that folks like E-Trade provide to their investors. However, the same type of analysis is now available to your clients through the Orion Advisor dashboard by incorporating AdvisoryWorld capability. The last element that I'm going to show you here is how we've incorporated Monte Carlo simulation. And in this case, we have 2 key assumptions: plan contributions and retirement goals. Now, this isn't intended to replace something like a Money Guide Pro or a eMoney Advisor or things like that, but in a matter of a couple of inputs here, you're going to get a really nice output to hopefully help you as an individual investor, to help your clients understand how different outcomes might play out depending on how they set up their goals and plan contributions. So I'm going to go ahead and say perhaps for the next several years, this investor is going to contribute $5,000 a year. And then starting after that, he's going to start drawing that down. You can then target which of these accounts or the entire household that you want to use as a source. And you'll see when I go ahead and select this one and run simulation, it's going to go off to our application and call that simulation back. While that runs, just takes a few seconds, I want to point at how you set up the integration in general, and that's by starting at advisor links. When you log into advisor links under the resources tab, as I mentioned previously, you simply click on AdvisoryWorld and you enter your AdvisoryWorld user ID, you save your AdvisoryWorld credentials, at which point all of your all the investors that are associated with your rep code will be able to use the AdvisoryWorld functions in our application.
Hi, this is Ed Falstrom with AdvisoryWorld. I've worked with a lot of you very closely already in getting the reports generated through Orion, as well as working with our off-the-shelf Scannalytics tool. But if any of you have any questions going forward in establishing the integration between AdvisoryWorld and Orion, please contact me directly at 800-480-3888. My extension is 103, and you can always email support@advisoryworld.com. That goes to a number of our members of our support team, which are always happy to help any of the advisors currently working with Orion.
Thanks, Ed. So if I switch back over to this tab, you'll notice that the Monte Carlo simulation has generated. And what we're showing here is that our initial goal was to withdraw $10,000 a year starting in 2020 and running out to 2030. And what we've illustrated here is that actually even in one of the best case scenarios, which is the 90th percentile, you're not going to make that. Based on these goals, this historical return and standard deviation assumption that's placed into the Monte Carlo. So to correct for those shortfalls, of course, we allow the user to go in and modify the different goals, set up different plan contributions, potentially use other goal sources, all in this analysis.
All right, Mike, this is Bill. Is there anything else you want to add?
Thanks, Bill. That's primarily what I want to show. We do have a question.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got some questions. Again, ladies and gentlemen, I know we're coming up on the half hour, but I am seeing questions come through the panel. So Mike, give us a quick answer to some of these questions that are coming in. First one comes from a listener named Pat. And Pat asks, how can you compare two different portfolios side by side? Now I saw on the portal where you can pull up the fact sheet for one holding. Is there a way to select two or maybe more portfolios or stocks and do comparisons?
So there's the only way to compare investments in this analysis is through the client dashboard, is through the asset screener. There is no way currently to compare portfolios side by side in the client dashboard. Of course, in our application, in our Scannalytics application, which is accessible through Orion Advisor, you can absolutely compare multiple portfolios side by side, including something along the lines of a client or prospect's existing account versus one of your suggested models.
All right, very good. So to be clear, that comes from the advisor portion of the analytics. So you definitely do that comparison. But for the end client perspective, really there's no way to do portfolio comparisons, but they can view some comparisons using the asset screener, correct?
That is correct.
All right, very good. Another question that came in, how does AdvisoryWorld calculate that portfolio risk score? How does that compare with other client risk scores that we might be seeing from other products? Just give us a little overview of that portfolio risk score that you're calculating.
All right, so we calculate our risk score based on a number of factors. Primarily, we're looking at MPT statistics to calculate those scores, and really interested in looking at a few things in particular. One would be the max drawdown. Another is the minimum rate of return with 90% confidence. We also look at things like Sortino ratio, downside deviation, batting average, just to name a few. But again, what we're looking at is a whole series of risk factors that we give various weightings to, or I like to call them gravity, to these different MPT statistics, and then we calculate derivative risk scores accordingly. How does that relate to other folks that are providing risk scores? It's hard to say. I mean, I've seen a lot of different risk scoring methodologies in the marketplace of late, and I would rather take my comments off the record for how I feel about some of their methods.
No worries, Mike. I totally understand on that one. Let me move forward to the next question. For your fact sheets that come up, are both for securities as well as models, are the return figures, are they GIPS compliant, or are there disclosures that advisors and investors need to be aware of?
Thanks, Bill. So with the fact sheets, there's a couple different ways to build them. One is in a pure hypothetical manner, meaning that let's take a series of investments, back test them hypothetically had I held them, in the same way that I do today historically. That's all, based on hypothetical performance and something that's been reviewed by FINRA. We have all the FINRA letters associated with the review of those reports, and that's just fine. Now, if folks are going to use their actual composite performance in the reports, it would be up to the firms themselves to determine whether or not those numbers are GIPS compliant. We've worked with both use cases for a long time now, both the hypothetical and the GIPS compliance, the actual performance numbers. So it really goes back to the firms themselves. I can tell you though, Bill, that our reports do allow for custom disclosures to be entered. So if you have something that you need to enter from a compliance perspective at the end of the report, that's off-the-shelf functionality that you can take advantage of today.
All right, very good. And let me go on to two more questions. First one is going to be about those asset allocations or those target allocations that we had seen in the model fact sheet. Are you importing the target allocation from Orion? Is it where's the source of some of that target allocation data that gets fed into the model fact sheet?
So yeah, so the target allocation, the model fact sheets can be built either by manually creating a model inside of our application, or probably better yet, we are importing the models directly from Orion and Orion's web services.
Very good. And also, is there an example, is there a place that someone could go on the web to get examples of what a sample model fact sheet looks like?
Yeah, definitely. At AdvisoryWorld.com, advisors can go to our resources tab, at which point they would click on Scanalytics. Again, as I mentioned earlier, they can also just email support@advisoryworld.com for request of any sample report set. We can provide that to them, or as you can see on the screen as Mike's gone to, at AdvisoryWorld.com under our resources tab, we have a number of helpful PDFs there.
All right, excellent. Let me go to the last question. We've got a couple more, but we'll give John the chance to follow up and take those offline to get those questions answered. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for submitting such excellent questions. Now, Mike and Ed, obviously advisors want to know what cost is. Tell us about the cost for AdvisoryWorld integration and what the subscription looks like to become part of that and take advantage of these integrations.
So we've worked out a really nice pricing model with Orion Advisor, and the pricing of the application it depends on which data elements that you subscribe to, but I would say in general the price is approximately $120 a month. Now there are different additional things that you can bolt on, different databases, things of that nature, but I'd say if you were to average it out, we'll be right about that range.
Excellent, excellent. So before I turn it back over to John, Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time and attention and hope you reach out to both Orion as well as AdvisoryWorld to talk about the integration and the opportunities that it offers for you to give and provide benefit to your end investors, to your end clients by providing these retail grade analytics, which is what you're seeing from competition from the online discount brokers. Mike had alluded to a lot of end investors using those sites for that research. Now, as an Orion user and an AdvisoryWorld user, you can provide that all within the Orion client portal to give a seamless and beneficial experience to your end clients. So once again, if you're not already subscribed to the FBPAD newsletter, subscribers knew about AdvisoryWorld and their awards at Fuse 2014. I urge you to become a subscriber if you're not already. It's free. It's over at fbpad.com/subscribe. And I'll turn it back over to John because I want you guys to come back to the next entry into the Fuse recognition of integrations with Orion. We do these webinars monthly. So John, go ahead and preview what attendees might see next month in January.
Okay, thank you very much, Bill. And again, to echo what Bill said, thank you to everyone who attended today, and thank you, Bill, Michael, and Ed, for being here to showcase AdvisoryWorld. Our next Fuse webinar is planned for early January, and our date right now is going to be January 6th. That is again a Tuesday, and again we'll have it at the same time as now. And very soon we will be announcing who's going to be joining us for that date. So keep an eye on your email. Keep an eye on the Orion Twitter at Orion Advisor. If you don't follow us, go ahead and do that. We like to have some fun on there and make it worth your while.